The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the polished marble floor of the Palmetto Grand Hotel as Pam Bondi pushed through the revolving door, wheeling her carry-on luggage behind her. A blast of cool air hit her face, a welcome relief from the humid Florida heat that seemed to follow her from the taxi to the entrance. She paused for a moment, taking in the grand lobby with its soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers. "Just breathe," she whispered to herself, reaching up to smooth a strand of blonde hair that had escaped her usually perfect bob. The flight delay had thrown off her entire schedule, and now she was cutting it close for the pre-conference meeting. After 20 years in law, including her tenure as Florida's Attorney General, Pam had mastered the art of composure under pressure, but today was testing her limits. Her phone buzzed in her jacket pocket. Another message from Tom, her assistant, reminding her about the meeting that started in 30 minutes. She'd hoped to have time to freshen up in her room, review her notes once more, and maybe even grab a quick coffee. Now she'd be lucky if she could drop her bags and make it to the conference room on time. The lobby buzzed with activity. A large banner hung above the central seating area. Annual Corporate Legal Compliance Summit. Men and women in crisp business attire clustered in small groups, networking before the official events began. No one seemed to notice Pam in her travel clothes. Dark jeans, a navy blazer over a simple white blouse, and comfortable flats she'd changed into for the taxi ride. After all, most people recognized her in formal attire from television appearances or official photos, not dressed down after a long day of travel. Pam made her way to the check-in desk, where 3 staff members were assisting a line of guests. She joined the shortest queue, behind an older gentleman who was engaged in an animated conversation with the receptionist about golf courses in the area. Pam checked her watch and shifted her weight from one foot to the other. "You look like you could use this," said a voice behind her. Pam turned to find a woman extending a bottle of water toward her. The woman had kind eyes and a warm smile. Her conference badge identified her as Dr. Chen, one of the keynote speakers Pam had been looking forward to meeting. "That obvious, huh?" Pam accepted the water gratefully. "Thank you, Dr. Chen. I've been looking forward to your presentation on healthcare compliance." Dr. Chen's eyebrows raised in surprise. "You recognize me." "Of course," Pam smiled. "Your work on hospital regulation reform is groundbreaking. I cited it extensively during my time as Attorney General." A flicker of recognition crossed Dr. Chen's face. "Wait, your next guest, please," called the receptionist, cutting their conversation short as the gentleman in front of Pam moved away. "I'll see you at the meeting," Pam whispered to Dr. Chen before stepping up to the desk. The receptionist, a young man whose name tag read Kyle, didn't look up from his computer. His fingers tapped rapidly on the keyboard while he finished whatever task had captured his attention. "Welcome to the Palmetto Grand," he said mechanically, still focused on the screen. "Checking in?" "Yes," Pam replied, setting her ID and credit card on the counter. "I have a reservation under Bondi, Pam Bondi." Kyle glanced briefly at her ID, then back at his screen. "I don't see a reservation under that name." "Are you sure you're at the right hotel?" His tone suggested this was a mistake she had made, not a possibility of an error in their system. "Yes, I'm certain. I'm here for the Legal Compliance Summit. The reservation was made months ago through the conference organizers." Kyle sighed heavily, as if her explanation was creating unnecessary work for him. "Let me check under the conference block." He tapped a few more keys, his expression showing more annoyance than concern for solving her problem. Pam glanced at her watch again. 25 minutes until the meeting. Her phone buzzed with another message. She pulled it out to find a text from the conference organizer. "Boardroom change to Magnolia Suite. Starts in 20. Bringing your materials." "Look," Pam said, trying to keep the edge out of her voice. "I'm running late for a meeting. Is there any way to expedite this?" "Everyone here is important, ma'am," Kyle replied without looking up. "We treat all guests equally." A woman at the next station looked over. Her name tag identified her as Brenda, and she wore a pin that suggested a higher position than Kyle's. She was helping a couple dressed in designer clothes, smiling broadly as she upgraded them to a suite. "Just one moment. Mr. and Mrs. DeWitt," Brenda said to her guests before turning to Kyle. "Is there a problem?" "No problem," Kyle replied. "Just someone who can't find her reservation and is in a rush." Pam felt her cheeks flush but maintained her composure. My reservation was made through the Legal Compliance Summit. I'm one of the speakers. Brenda gave Pam a quick once-over, her eyes taking in the casual travel clothes. The summit speakers are staying in our executive wing. Are you sure you're part of that group? Her skepticism was thinly veiled. Yes, I am quite sure, Pam replied evenly. Perhaps you could check under the summit's block reservation. Kyle was already doing that, Brenda said, turning back to her own guests. I'm sure he can handle it. The DeWitts watched the exchange with uncomfortable expressions. The husband leaned toward his wife and whispered something that made her frown sympathetically in Pam's direction. Kyle continued searching, his movements deliberately slow. There are a lot of support staff and vendors registered through the conference. Maybe check if you're listed under one of those categories. Pam took a deep breath. After years in courtrooms and facing tough press conferences, she'd learned that losing her temper never helped a situation. I'm not support staff. I'm a presenter and committee chairperson. Could I speak with a manager, please? Kyle exchanged a glance with Brenda, who rolled her eyes slightly before finishing up with the DeWitts. As they walked away with their key cards, Brenda stepped closer. Our manager is in a meeting right now, Brenda explained with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But I'm the assistant manager on duty. How can I help? My name is Pam Bondi. I have a reservation as part of the Legal Compliance Summit. I'm chairing the Oversight Committee and giving the opening address tomorrow morning. I need to get checked in quickly because I have a meeting starting soon. Brenda's expression remained skeptical. Do you have any confirmation emails or documents for this reservation? Pam pulled out her phone and opened her email, finding the confirmation and showing it to Brenda. The assistant manager studied it for a moment. This shows a reservation, but it doesn't specify the type of accommodation, Brenda said. The executive wing rooms are reserved for VIPs. From behind Pam, Dr. Chen's voice cut in. She is a VIP. Do you know who? Pam touched Dr. Chen's arm gently, stopping her. It's fine. Any room will do at this point. I just need to get to my meeting. Brenda tapped on the keyboard, her lips pressed into a thin line. We're quite full with the conference. I can put you in a standard room on the 3rd floor. It's the best I can do without approval from the event coordinator. That's fine, Pam said, aware of the growing line behind her and the ticking clock. As Brenda processed the check-in, a young bellhop approached, having noticed the situation. Would you like help with your bags, ma'am? He asked kindly. Yes, thank you, Pam replied. But I'll keep my briefcase. I need to head straight to a meeting in the Magnolia Suite. Oh, that's on the other side of the hotel, he said helpfully. I can show you a shortcut after we drop your bags. Brenda slid a key card across the counter with a tight smile. Room 317. Basic rate includes breakfast, but not the executive lounge access. Elevators are to your right. Thank you, Pam said, collecting her ID, credit card, and key. As she turned away, she heard Kyle mutter to Brenda, another one who thinks she's more important than she is. Pam pretended not to hear as the bellhop, whose name tag read Luis, picked up her suitcase. This way, ma'am. In the elevator, Luis spoke quietly. Sorry about that. Weekend staff isn't always the best. They don't usually work with the big conferences. It's all right, Pam assured him. We all have off days. The elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor, and Luis led her down a corridor to room 317. It was smaller than she'd expected, with a view of the parking lot rather than the ocean visible from the other side of the hotel, but it would do. I can take you to the Magnolia Suite now, Luis offered after setting down her luggage. There's a service corridor that's much faster than going back through the lobby. That would be wonderful. Thank you, Pam said, checking her reflection quickly in the mirror, straightening her blazer, and grabbing her briefcase. As they hurried through the back hallways of the hotel, Luis chatted amiably. This is a big conference. Are you one of the lawyers? Pam smiled. Yes, something like that. They emerged from a discreet door into a hallway lined with meeting rooms. Outside the Magnolia Suite, a group of people in business attire were gathering, checking their watches and phones. Pam, there you are. A tall man with silver hair waved her over. We were about to send out a search party. Thanks for your help, Luis, Pam said, slipping him a tip. You saved me valuable time. As Luis left with a grateful nod, Pam joined the group outside the meeting room. The silver-haired man, Richard Barnes, the conference organizer, shook her hand warmly. Travel troubles? He asked. Just a slight delay at check-in, she replied, diplomat. The meeting ran longer than expected. By the time Pam finally left the Magnolia Suite, the golden afternoon sun had given way to the purple hues of evening. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten since the small bag of pretzels on the plane. Despite the exhaustion settling into her bones, she felt satisfied with how the meeting had gone. The committee had agreed on her proposed agenda for the conference, and tomorrow's opening session was shaping up to be impactful. "You knocked it out of the park as usual," Richard said, walking with her toward the main lobby. "The oversight committee couldn't have picked a better chairperson." Pam smiled, appreciating his kind words. "Thanks, Richard. I think we've got a solid framework for the conference. I just hope the hotel is prepared for the media presence tomorrow." "About that," Richard lowered his voice, "the hotel management seems a bit disorganized. I've had several speakers mention issues with their rooms." "I noticed," Pam replied, thinking of her own check-in experience. "But let's give them the benefit of the doubt. First day of a big conference is always hectic." Richard nodded, though he didn't look convinced. "A group of us are heading to dinner at that seafood place down the street. Care to join?" The thought of a proper meal was tempting, but Pam's body was demanding rest more than food. "I'd love to, but I think I need to review my notes and turn in early." "Rain check for tomorrow?" "Absolutely," Richard said. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's a big day." They parted ways in the lobby, which was now even busier than before. The evening reception for the conference was in full swing, with attendees networking over drinks and appetizers. Several people nodded in recognition as Pam passed, but she managed to avoid getting pulled into conversations. Right now, she just wanted to get something to eat, take a hot shower, and crawl into bed. As she headed toward the hotel restaurant, she spotted Dr. Chen waving to her from across the lobby. The woman made her way through the crowd, looking refreshed and energetic. "Pam, I saved you a seat at our table if you'd like to join," Dr. Chen said, gesturing toward a group of colleagues near the bar. "That's very kind of you. But I think I need something quick and quiet," Pam replied. "How was your room?" "Better than the check-in experience, I hope." Dr. Chen rolled her eyes. "They put me in a room right next to the ice machine. I called down and asked to switch, and suddenly they found me a lovely suite with an ocean view. Funny how that works once they realized who I was." Pam laughed. "I haven't even had time to properly check out my room yet. Third-floor parking lot view." "What? That's ridiculous. You should say something," Dr. Chen said, frowning. "Maybe tomorrow. Right now I just need food and sleep," Pam replied. After saying goodbye to Dr. Chen, Pam headed to the hotel restaurant. A sign at the entrance stated, "Conference welcome reception in progress." Restaurant closed for regular dining. Pam sighed. She didn't have the energy for the networking reception, but her options were limited. She approached the host stand, where a young woman was checking reservation lists. "Excuse me, is there anywhere I can get a quick meal without joining the reception?" Pam asked. The hostess looked up with a practiced smile. "The reception is open to all conference attendees. There's a wonderful buffet set up. I understand, but I've just arrived after a long day of travel and was hoping for something quieter," Pam explained. The hostess glanced down at Pam's casual attire, her smile faltering slightly. "The reception is business casual. If you'd like to change and come back, we'll be serving until 9. Pam felt a flash of irritation but kept her tone even. "I'm not asking to attend the reception. I'm asking if there's room service or another dining option in the hotel. Room service ends at 8 and it's..." The hostess checked her watch. 8:15 now. "There's a vending machine near the ice maker on each floor." She turned her attention to a group of well-dressed attendees approaching behind Pam. "Good evening. Welcome to the reception. May I see your conference badges, please?" Dismissed again, Pam stepped aside. Her stomach protested loudly, and she decided to check at the front desk about food options. As she approached, she noticed Brenda was still there, now joined by an older man in a manager's suit who was speaking with a guest. Kyle had been replaced by another receptionist, a woman who looked barely out of high school. Her name tag read Tiffany. She was typing rapidly on her phone under the desk, glancing up only when Pam cleared her throat. "Can I help you?" Tiffany asked, reluctantly putting her phone down. "I'm wondering about dining options since the restaurant is closed for regular service," Pam said. "There's a reception for the conference people," Tiffany replied. "Yes, I know, but I'm looking for alternatives." Tiffany shrugged. "There's a bunch of places that deliver." "Menace in your room." "Thank you," Pam said. "Also, I'd like to inquire about moving to a different room." I believe there was some confusion during check-in, and I was placed in a standard room rather than in the executive wing with the other conference speakers. Tiffany's eyes narrowed slightly. Those rooms are all booked. Special reservations. I understand, but my reservation was made months ago through the conference organizers. I'm one of the main speakers and the chairperson of— Look, Tiffany cut her off. I don't handle the special bookings. That's Brenda's department, and she's busy right now. She nodded toward Brenda, who was still engaged with the manager and another guest. You can try again tomorrow when the regular manager is here. Pam took a deep breath. Is there someone else I can speak with tonight? You're welcome to wait, but Brenda's the only one who can help with room changes, and she's got a line of people already waiting to talk to her. Tiffany gestured to several guests hovering nearby. The hotel's fully booked for this conference thing. Not much we can do. From the corner of her eye, Pam saw Luis, the helpful bellhop from earlier, walking through the lobby with a luggage cart. He noticed her at the front desk and gave a small wave. After delivering the luggage he was carrying, he made his way over. Everything okay with your room, Miss Bondi? He asked politely. The room is fine, Luis, Pam replied, grateful for his friendly face. I was just trying to find something to eat since the restaurant is closed for regular dining. Luis glanced at Tiffany, who had already gone back to her phone, then lowered his voice. The staff dining room is serving until midnight. It's nothing fancy, just sandwiches and soup tonight, but I'd be happy to bring something up to your room. That would be wonderful, thank you, Pam said, touched by his kindness. No trouble at all. Any preferences? Anything that's not airplane pretzels would be amazing, Pam replied with a smile. Luis nodded and headed off, while Pam turned back to the front desk. Tiffany was still absorbed in her phone, so Pam decided to try once more with Brenda, who had just finished with the guest she'd been helping. As Pam approached, Brenda's expression hardened. The manager she'd been standing with had disappeared into a back office. Excuse me, Brenda, Pam began. I was hoping to discuss my room assignment. There seems to have been a mix-up. Brenda crossed her arms. As I explained earlier, we've accommodated you with what was available. The hotel is at full capacity. I understand that, but my reservation was specifically for the executive wing, where the other conference speakers are staying. It's more convenient for early morning meetings and— Ma'am, Brenda interrupted, her tone patronizing. I don't know what you were told, but those rooms are reserved for VIP guests. The conference organizers provided a list and your name simply isn't on it. A couple standing nearby turned to watch the exchange, their expressions curious. Pam could feel her face growing warm, but she maintained her composure. There must be a mistake, Pam said evenly. I'm the chairperson of the oversight committee and the opening keynote speaker. Brenda gave her a skeptical look, taking in Pam's casual travel clothes once more. Anyone can claim to be important, ma'am. We follow the official lists we're given. One of the waiting guests, a tall man in an expensive suit, stepped forward. Excuse me, but did you say you're the chairperson? Are you Pam Bondi? Pam turned, recognizing the man as the CEO of a major healthcare company. Yes, that's right. Good to see you again, Mr. Harrington. The man's face lit up. I thought that was you. I'm looking forward to your keynote tomorrow. He turned to Brenda. This woman is indeed the former Attorney General of Florida and our keynote speaker. Surely there's been some mistake with her accommodations. Brenda's expression flickered between doubt and concern. I'll need to verify this with the event coordinator. Please do, Pam said calmly. You can speak with Richard Barnes. He should be in the reception right now. Brenda nodded stiffly. I'll look into it. In the meantime, you'll need to stay in your current room until we can confirm. That's fine, Pam replied, unwilling to prolong the confrontation. Thank you for checking. As Brenda walked away, Mr. Harrington shook his head. Unbelievable. Would you like me to say something to the hotel management? This is completely unacceptable treatment. I appreciate the offer, but it's not necessary, Pam assured him. These things happen. I'm sure it will be sorted out. Morning sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of Pam's room, waking her earlier than she'd hoped. She blinked at the bedside clock, 5:42 a.m. Her presentation wasn't until 9, but her body was still on East Coast time. The sandwich Luis had brought her last night had been basic but satisfying, and she'd fallen asleep almost immediately after eating. Her notes for today's keynote spread across the bed. Pam stretched and headed to the bathroom. The shower pressure was weak, and the complimentary shampoo left her hair feeling stiff, but at least she was clean. As she toweled off, her phone buzzed with a text from Richard. Breakfast meeting with board members, 7 a.m. Executive Lounge. Urgent updates to discuss before keynote. Great, she thought. Another hurdle. The desk clerk had made it clear yesterday that her basic room didn't include access to the executive lounge. She'd have to sort that out immediately. Pam, dressed in her navy suit, applied light makeup and styled her hair. The woman looking back at her in the mirror was poised, professional and ready to handle whatever the day threw at her. By 6:30, Pam was heading downstairs with her briefcase and room key. The lobby was quiet this early, with just a few business travelers checking out and a maintenance worker polishing the marble floors. At the front desk, she was relieved to see neither Brenda nor Kyle was on duty. Instead, an older gentleman with silver hair and a crisp uniform greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" "Good morning," Pam replied, returning his smile. "I need to access the executive lounge for a meeting at 7, but I was told yesterday my room doesn't include access." The man, whose name tag read Howard, typed something into the computer. "Your name, please?" "Pam Bondi." Howard's fingers moved across the keyboard. Yes. Room 317. He frowned slightly. "That's odd. You're listed as a VIP conference guest, but you're not in the executive wing." He looked up with an apologetic expression. "I'm very sorry about this mix-up. Of course you have access to the executive lounge. Let me update your keycard." Finally, someone competent, Pam thought with relief. "Thank you, Howard. While we're at it, is there any chance of moving to the executive wing? I was told last night the hotel was fully booked, but I'm supposed to be staying near the other speakers." Howard's frown deepened as he studied the computer screen. "According to this, Brenda spoke with the event coordinator last night and was supposed to move you to Suite 822. I'm not sure why that didn't happen." He clicked through several screens. "The suite is still available and reserved for you. I'm terribly sorry about this oversight." "These things happen," Pam said graciously. "Could I move after my morning meetings?" "Absolutely. I'll have everything transferred to your new room by noon," Howard assured her, reprogramming her keycard. "This will now give you access to the executive lounge and elevator. I've also added complimentary breakfast and minibar access as an apology for the inconvenience." Pam thanked him and headed toward the executive elevator. Her morning was looking up. Maybe yesterday's problems were just first-day confusion after all. The executive lounge was on the top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. Several conference attendees were already inside, helping themselves to the breakfast buffet or typing on laptops at private tables. Richard waved her over to a corner where he sat with 3 other committee members. "There she is," Richard said warmly. "We were just discussing the last-minute changes to the regulatory panel." He introduced the others, though Pam already knew them by reputation. As they discussed the conference agenda, a waitress approached their table. "Coffee, tea?" she asked, her gaze moving around the group until it landed on Pam. The young woman's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me, this area is reserved for executive guests only." Conversation at the table halted. Richard looked up in surprise. "She's with us." "I'll need to see an access card," the waitress insisted, her tone clipped. Pam calmly produced her newly programmed key card. "Howard at the front desk just updated this for me." The waitress examined the card skeptically. "This is a standard room key. It doesn't have the gold executive mark." "Howard just reprogrammed it," Pam explained patiently. "He confirmed I have lounge access." "I need to verify this," the waitress said, turning toward a house phone on the wall. One of the committee members, a distinguished judge from California, spoke up. "Young lady, do you know who this is?" "This is Attorney General Bondi, our keynote speaker." The waitress hesitated, looking uncertain. "I'm just following protocol. All executive guests have the gold-marked keys." "It's fine," Pam said, standing up. "I'll speak with Howard again to get this sorted out." "Please don't leave on account of this," Richard said, clearly embarrassed. "We have important matters to discuss before the opening session." "I'll handle this," another committee member said. Walking over to the lounge manager who had just entered, Pam sat back down, maintaining her composure despite the eyes of every guest in the lounge now on their table. The waitress walked away stiffly as the committee member returned with the lounge manager. "My deepest apologies, Ms. Bondi," the manager said with a slight bow. "There's clearly been a misunderstanding. You are, of course, welcome in the executive lounge. May I bring you some coffee?" Coffee would be lovely, thank you, Pam replied graciously. The meeting continued, but Pam could feel the lingering looks from other guests. Word had spread quickly about who she was, and several people stopped by their table to introduce themselves before the meeting concluded. At 8:30, they wrapped up the discussion. Pam had just enough time to return to her room for her presentation materials before heading to the main conference hall. As she waited for the elevator, Dr. Chen joined her. "I heard about what happened in the lounge," Dr. Chen said. "This hotel is really something else." Pam shrugged. "Just a few mix-ups. Howard at the front desk has been very helpful. He's moving me to the executive wing today." "Well, it's about time," Dr. Chen replied as they stepped into the elevator. "Oh, I should mention, there's a problem with the slide presentation system in the main hall. The tech team is working on it, but you might want to check your presentation before you go on." Pam glanced at her watch. That didn't leave much time. "Thanks for the heads up." Back in her room, Pam gathered her materials quickly. She noticed the "Do Not Disturb" sign was still on her door from last night. Yet her bed had been made and fresh towels hung in the bathroom. She frowned, not appreciating that housekeeping had ignored her sign, but there was no time to address it now. When she arrived at the main conference hall, chaos greeted her. The tech team was huddled around the presentation computer, while the audio crew tested microphones that produced occasional screeching feedback. Conference attendees were already filing in, many glancing anxiously at the technical difficulties. The conference coordinator, a nervous young woman with clipboard in hand, rushed over to Pam. "Ms. Bondi, thank goodness you're here early. We have a slight problem with the presentation system. All the slides have disappeared." "Disappeared?" Pam repeated calmly. "Do you have a backup?" "We're trying to restore from the backup, but it's taking longer than expected," the coordinator explained. "Do you happen to have your presentation on a flash drive?" Fortunately, Pam always came prepared. She reached into her briefcase and produced a small flash drive. "Here's my latest version." Relief washed over the coordinator's face. "You're a lifesaver." "I'll get this to the tech team right away." As the coordinator hurried off, Pam felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Brenda from the front desk, looking significantly less confident than she had yesterday. "Ms. Bondi," Brenda began, her voice professional but strained. "I wanted to personally apologize for the confusion with your room assignment. Howard informed me that you'll be moving to Suite 822 today. I've taken the liberty of arranging for your belongings to be transferred while you're giving your keynote." "Thank you, Brenda," Pam replied. "I appreciate that." Brenda hesitated, then added, "The hotel manager would like to speak with you when you have a moment. He's very concerned about your experience so far." "I'll stop by the front desk after my presentation," Pam said. Brenda nodded and walked away quickly, clearly uncomfortable. As Pam reviewed her notes one last time, Luis appeared beside her with a bottle of water and a supportive smile. "Thought you might need this." "Ms. Bondi," he said, offering the water. "Big crowd out there." "Thank you, Luis," Pam said, genuinely touched by his consistent thoughtfulness. "You've been a bright spot in an otherwise challenging stay." "Just doing my job," he replied modestly. "Though between you and me, something strange is happening with management this morning. The big boss flew in early and there's been a lot of closed-door meetings." "Is that so?" Pam said, taking a sip of water. "Never seen anything like it," Luis continued. "And now they've called all front desk staff to an emergency meeting right after your keynote." He lowered his voice. "Word is someone important got treated poorly and heads might roll." Pam kept her expression neutral. "Well, I hope it all works out." "Me too," Luis said. "Good luck with your speech." The main conference hall buzzed with anticipation. Nearly 500 legal professionals, corporate executives, and compliance officers filled the rows of chairs, their morning coffee in hand as they waited for the keynote to begin. On stage, Richard tapped the microphone and welcomed everyone to the annual Corporate Legal Compliance Summit. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker and the chairperson of our Oversight Committee. She served as Florida's Attorney General, led groundbreaking cases against fraud and corruption, and now heads the Legal Oversight Division for Reynolds Hospitality Group. Please welcome Pam Bondi." Applause filled the room as Pam walked confidently to the podium. She smiled warmly at the audience, setting her notes down and taking a moment to look across the sea of faces. "Thank you, Richard, and good morning, everyone." Her voice was clear and strong, carrying to the back of the hall without sounding forced. When we talk about corporate legal compliance, we often focus on the big things: financial regulations, data privacy laws, environmental standards. But today I'd like to start with something that might seem smaller but impacts every aspect of your business: customer service. From the corner of her eye, Pam noticed movement at the back of the hall. Tom Reynolds had slipped in quietly, accompanied by a serious-looking man in an expensive suit who she guessed was the hotel general manager. Beside them stood Brenda, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "How your staff treats customers reflects your entire corporate culture," Pam continued. "It demonstrates whether your stated values are actually practiced or merely written in an employee handbook and forgotten." For the next 40 minutes, Pam delivered a masterful presentation on the legal implications of poor service, connecting everyday interactions with larger compliance failures. She drew from real cases where seemingly minor customer complaints had revealed systemic legal violations. Throughout, she never directly mentioned her experience at this hotel, but several times she caught Tom Reynolds nodding meaningfully at the general manager. In conclusion, Pam said, "Compliance isn't just about following regulations. It's about creating a culture where every employee understands that their actions represent your company's values and commitment to doing the right thing, whether anyone's watching or not." "Thank you." The audience rose in a standing ovation. As Pam gathered her notes, Richard announced a 30-minute coffee break before the next session. People began filing out, many stopping to shake Pam's hand or exchange business cards. After the crowd thinned, Tom Reynolds approached the stage. "Brilliant speech, Pam. Exactly what was needed." "Thank you, Tom," she replied. "I see you made it just in time." "Barely," he said with a grim smile. "I was on a late flight when I got word about how you've been treated here. I'm still piecing together what happened, but I'd like you to join us for that meeting I mentioned." "This is Arthur Wilson, our general manager." The man beside Tom extended his hand. "Ms. Bondi, it's an honor to meet you. I can't express how deeply sorry I am about the treatment you've received." Pam shook his hand firmly. "Let's discuss it in private, shall we?" They made their way to a conference room off the main lobby. Inside, a group of hotel staff waited nervously. Pam recognized Howard, Brenda, Kyle, and Tiffany from the front desk. Luis the bellhop sat apart from them, looking confused about why he had been included. A few other staff members Pam didn't recognize rounded out the group. As they entered, everyone stood. Arthur gestured for them to be seated and closed the door. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," he began, his voice tight. "We have a serious situation to address. For those who haven't been informed, this is Pam Bondi, former Attorney General of Florida and the current head of legal oversight for Reynolds Hospitality Group, our parent company." The color drained from several faces. Kyle's mouth fell open, while Tiffany stared at the table, suddenly fascinated by her folded hands. Brenda looked as though she might be ill. "More importantly," Tom Reynolds added, stepping forward, "Ms. Bondi is chairing the committee that will be evaluating our entire hotel chain for legal compliance issues over the next 6 months. This conference was specifically located here so she could begin her assessment." A heavy silence filled the room. Pam kept her expression neutral as she observed the staff's reactions. Howard and Luis appeared concerned but not personally worried. They had treated her respectfully from the start. Arthur cleared his throat. "I've been briefed on some disturbing reports about Ms. Bondi's treatment since her arrival. Rather than rely on secondhand information, I'd like to hear directly from Ms. Bondi about her experience." All eyes turned to Pam. She took a moment before speaking, choosing her words carefully. "First, I want to make something clear. This isn't about me personally or my position with the company. This is about how any guest should be treated." She looked around the table. "That said, since checking in yesterday, I've experienced a series of service failures that concern me deeply as someone responsible for evaluating this hotel's compliance with company standards." Pam recounted her experiences calmly and factually: the dismissive check-in, the repeated questioning of her status, the room mix-up, the executive lounge incident, all without raising her voice or expressing anger. She noted which staff had been problematic and which, like Howard and Luis, had provided excellent service despite the challenges. "What troubles me most," she concluded, "is not that mistakes were made. Mistakes happen in any organization. What concerns me is the attitude behind those mistakes, an assumption that certain guests don't deserve the same respect as others based on superficial judgments." Tom Reynolds, who had been taking notes, looked up with a hard expression. This is exactly the kind of culture that leads to discrimination lawsuits. Arthur, I expected better from your team. Arthur nodded gravely. You're absolutely right. This is unacceptable. He turned to his staff. Would anyone care to explain their actions? Brenda spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. Miss Bondi, I sincerely apologize. When you arrived, you weren't dressed like... I didn't realize who you were, and I assumed... That's precisely the problem. Pam interjected gently. Service shouldn't depend on who someone is or how they're dressed. Kyle jumped in, his words tumbling out. I just followed the protocols we were taught. VIP guests are flagged in the system, and your name wasn't flagged. I didn't know... Again, Tom interrupted. This is about more than Ms. Bondi's position. This is about treating all guests with respect. Tiffany stared at the table, saying nothing. The shame on her face spoke volumes. Luis raised his hand hesitantly. May I say something? Arthur nodded. I didn't know who Ms. Bondi was either when I helped her yesterday, Luis said. I just saw someone who needed assistance and did my job. That's what we're all supposed to do, right? A few staff members shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Exactly right, Luis, Tom said, nodding appreciatively. That's exactly the point. Howard spoke up next. If I may, Mr. Reynolds, I believe this reflects a training issue. Our front desk staff is taught to categorize guests by their reservation type rather than focus on individual needs. Perhaps we need to rethink that approach. Pam nodded thoughtfully. That's a constructive suggestion, Howard. Arthur turned to Pam and Tom. What actions would you recommend we take from here? Tom deferred to Pam with a gesture. All eyes turned to her again, many now anxious about their job security. Pam considered her response carefully. I believe in learning opportunities rather than punishment, she began. I recommend a comprehensive review of your customer service training program, with specific attention to eliminating bias in guest interactions. I'd also suggest shadowing programs where staff can learn from employees like Luis and Howard, who understand that good service is about meeting needs, not judging status. Relief visibly washed over several faces. Additionally, Pam continued, I'd like the front desk team to participate in the compliance workshop tomorrow. It might help everyone understand why these issues matter from a legal perspective. Arthur nodded vigorously. Absolutely. We'll implement all these recommendations immediately. He turned to his staff. This is a wake-up call for all of us. Ms. Bondi is giving us an opportunity to improve rather than facing more serious consequences. I expect everyone to take this seriously. Tom added, the findings from this hotel will influence how we approach staff training across all our properties. Consider this the beginning of a company-wide reassessment. As the meeting wrapped up, staff members filed out quietly, many stopping to personally apologize to Pam. Brenda lingered behind, clearly struggling with what to say. Ms. Bondi, she finally managed, I'm truly sorry. I've worked here for 7 years, and I've always prided myself on providing good service. Yesterday wasn't my best day, but that's no excuse. I hope you'll give me a chance to make it right. Pam's expression softened. Everyone has off days, Brenda. What matters is how we learn from them. I'll be here for the rest of the week. Plenty of time to start fresh. Brenda nodded gratefully and left.